24 seconds. As we're getting close to the planned launch here, I want to go ahead and take a moment to go through the flight test timeline just to give everyone an overview of what we're expecting with a good liftoff of the Starship Super Heavy fully integrated rocket. And we did hear that there is a hold in place. The SpaceX commentators were talking over it, so it's a little bit hard to make out what they're saying. Let's go ahead and listen in for a second.
We heard that an operator hold got in, so they are troubleshooting one issue. As we continue to move through prop load, we'll get some more details on what caused the hold and if we start to reset to a new T0. We are still loading prop on the vehicle, so essentially putting that hold in means that if we get through everything and we hit that T-minus 40-second mark, we'll hold there and wait to clear the issue if we haven't cleared it at some point in the next 20 minutes.
Yeah, for those that are unfamiliar, that T-minus 40-second period is an opportunity to troubleshoot, unlike our Falcon timeline. So we do have a little bit of leeway.
Yeah.
Continuing on with...
As you just heard, the hold, unlike a Falcon 9 rocket launch where a hold would elicit a scrub, since SpaceX does not have the ability to halt or alter fueling timeline once propellant has begun on either a Falcon 9 or a Falcon Heavy rocket. There is that margin for a Starship launch that comes up at about the T-minus 40-second mark, where once they hit that pocket, they can extend the countdown to continue working any potential issues. Of course, we'll continue listening in to SpaceX commentary, and if they provide any additional information regarding that hold, especially if there's an updated T0, we'll be sure to jump in with that as well. Currently, they are still counting down towards a liftoff coming up here at 5:45 p.m. Central, 6:45 p.m. Eastern, 23:45 UTC for our friends around the world. As we're getting close to the conclusion of the countdown, though, do want to bring in a new voice, part of the Lab Padre team, Nathan Ziegler. If you can hear me, welcome into the show. Glad to have you with us.
Yeah, great to be here. Always exciting to get to watch Starship launch again. And so looking forward to hopefully getting past this hold and moving forward with launch.
Yeah, and since we haven't, you and I had a chance to talk about all the goings on with this mission, go ahead and bring you in on this point that SpaceX is highlighting right now, some of the updated heat shield tiles and the various experiments, the dozens across the ship upper stage that are being tested as far as having better and ultimately working towards a fully reusable heat shield. Just wanted to get your top-level thoughts on, what you're expecting to see with some of these tests and the importance of getting this Block 2 ship through peak heating today.
Well, with them wanting to start catching ships so quickly, I think this is an important test today. And I'm curious to see how the metallic ones handle, especially the ones that are cooled. To how will they handle reentry? There's a lot of different things. I wish we knew more about all the various types of tiles and various materials they're using. But it's the metallic ones I think that I'm the most curious about.
Zach, I know we've talked a bit about the tiles as well, but is it the actively cooled ones? I think you were saying were what you were kind of most interested in, if I remember your thoughts on that. Is that kind of the one you're locking into?
Yeah, I was kind of hoping they were going to explain a little bit more about them, but they've kind of just given just a general announcement that they're there. They don't really talk much about how they work. It's really difficult to see any details with that because a lot of that stuff is going to be under the skin. So I do think it's really interesting topic that hopefully in the future we'll get more information.
That view we were just seeing, of course, was loading of the dummy Starlinks. This is a rendering of what an operational Starship would look like on orbit, deploying those version 3 Starlink satellites. The flight to date is, of course, going to follow a suborbital trajectory. Starship is not going into orbit and will not be deploying its dummy Starlink satellites into orbit. They will follow the path of the ship upper stage and splash down in the Indian Ocean if all goes well. Excuse me, they will burn up, not splash down. Now currently T-minus 17 minutes, 20 seconds and counting. At this point, the Raptor engine chill is getting underway. Actually, this is a really nice view. This is SpaceX explaining the deployment of their mobile remote cameras that are deployed in the Indian Ocean that capture views like the one we saw here with Flight 6 of the splashdown of the ship upper stage in the Indian Ocean. So we should be getting some good views of that on this flight, again, assuming that ship survives better than it did last time. SpaceX commentator Chris Gebhardt noting that there are about 30 cameras on Starship rocket today. So assuming all moves along well, we should get some pretty nice views throughout the course of the flight. See how many of those camera views SpaceX decides to loop into the broadcast. Currently T-minus 15 minutes, 20 seconds and counting. Let's go back to that flight test timeline since we were interrupted with the update from SpaceX when we were just about to get into the flow of this here. Following liftoff, about 2 seconds post T0, the rocket will pass through max Q with a point of greatest aerodynamic pressure on the vehicle a little more than a minute into the flight.
No sabemos lo que tiene, tenemos que revisar para
We'll
cotizar.
the booster
Porque no sabemos lo que tiene, usted sabe que hay que meterle presión para ver cuál es el fallo. Y entonces de ahí que se cotiza.
For Starship booster, that is, most engines cut off. That'll be followed by the release of the hot stage or the hot staging point, which is stage separation, where the Raptor engines on the ship upper stage will ignite and the ship upper stage will separate from the booster. Super Heavy booster B-15 will perform the start of its boost back burn. That starts at about T plus 2 minutes and 45 seconds, lasting until about T plus 3 minutes and 30 seconds. The hot stage ring will then be jettisoned a couple seconds after that. And if all goes well during that process, then SpaceX will make the call on whether they will attempt a catch of the Super Heavy booster with the tower and the chopsticks, or if they need to divert the booster for a landing in the Gulf. If a catch attempt is made, the booster landing burn start will happen in about T plus 6 minutes and 37 seconds, with the landing burn shutdown and catch attempt just before the 7-minute mark. Moving on to the objectives that they were not able to accomplish during Flight 7. T plus 8 minutes and 44 seconds, the engines on the ship upper stage will shut down. We'll see the 4 dummy Starlinks be deployed at T plus 17 minutes and 24 seconds, followed by the Raptor in-space relight demonstration about 20 minutes after that. Fast forward another 10 minutes, the ship upper stage will begin the entry sequence, pass through peak heating. It'll be transonic at about T plus 1 hour, 3 minutes and 5 seconds. Subsonic, about a minute after that. They'll perform its landing flip at T plus 1 hour, 6 minutes and 4 seconds. And finally, the landing burn starts 2 seconds after that with a splashdown in the Indian Ocean, about T plus 1 hour, 6 minutes and 26 seconds.
Yeah, so one interesting thing they did mention that they're expecting Pad 39A to come online before the year's over. So that's going to be very interesting. A lot of work required to get that going. I think I feel like they have a lot more to worry about as far as delays go. You know, with Starship, they have launches that they got to compete with, shutting down construction operations for a day or two, once every month and a half right now, probably soon to increase to once every other week. But, you know, with the launch cadence at 39A, you get quite the amount of disruptions during launches. So, yeah, I mean, luckily they already had the tower completed down there, so they're pretty much just building the flame trench and new launch mount. So I guess they expect to have all that completed within the next 10 months, or sorry, 9 months.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see how that impacts the flow of operations at Pad 39A, especially when you get into the latter part of the year and some of the obviously big tests that are going to likely come in preparation for a Starship launch. You know, thinking about some of the things that are trending toward the back half of the year, or really just throughout 2025. I mean, coming up next, we have the launches of crew missions like NASA's Crew 10 to the International Space Station, the free-flying mission of FRAM-2, which is going to be launching to polar orbit, the private astronaut mission from Axiom Space, AX-4. Just name a few. Crew 11 coming up later in the year. Got a little actuation from the forward flaps. A great view of one of the aft flaps, I believe this is. And Nathan or Zach, whoever wants to take this, maybe Nathan, you talk about the importance of doing, as the SpaceX commentator Dan Hote notes, the wiggle test of those flaps and some of the actuation that's done on the engines as well pre-launch.
That might be better for Zach to answer that question.
Well, I think a few minutes ago those flaps were stowed, so I think it may just be a normal thing where they, have already performed those flap tests. I think they even do them inside of the Mega Bay, but I believe they were in that stowed position, so they just finally moved them out. But obviously making sure all of your important hardware is working before launch is really good. I think they just try to keep that crosswinds as low as possible by keeping them stowed leading up until the end of propellant loading.
Yeah, I guess the wiggles are a lot like when you have an aircraft. No matter how often you fly it, you have your checklist. You go down and you check all of your elevators and ailerons and so forth to make sure they're working. And I would imagine it's the same kind of a deal as they go through their checklist. Is those wiggles are there, even though they assume they'll work, they go through the wiggles to make sure everything's working correctly and being sensed correctly.
Exactly. Currently T-minus 7 minutes, 12 seconds and counting. We're approaching the conclusion of prop load here. This is just a replay of the booster catch from previous launch. Just want to note one of the things that was mentioned by SpaceX commentators, that they are still working the issue related to the previously mentioned hold, but they did note that they're confident that it'll be cleared before the T-minus 40-second mark, where they can conduct an actual proper hold. Meanwhile, Kate Tice, the other commentator, said that there is a 35% chance of violating weather constraints. So they're, of course, continuing to keep an eye on the weather, but right now the weather was rated as green.
Is the boosters slowing down from supersonic speeds. It's similar to sonic booms that were heard during the return and landing of NASA's space shuttle for anyone that was in Florida
folks,
for those.
Especially
sonic booms like these are unique to vehicles returning from space and are one of the hallmarks of reusable systems like our Falcon 9 and Falcon Heavy vehicles. The general impact to those in the surrounding area of a sonic boom is basically a brief thunder-like noise. And I've heard sonic booms before, but I got to experience my first in-person Starship sonic boom on Flight 7, and I can confirm it's pretty fun to experience.
Those out to the west, though, a little bit better viewing this perspective from cameras at the rocket ranch.
It's not quite as bad as it was during SN-15's flight, but kind of gives off those vibes.
Yeah, of course, with a program that's trying to increase its launch cadence, you're just going to have to deal with weather conditions that are, suboptimal for viewing. But
And as someone who has heard sonic booms many times in Florida, they are definitely a hallmark, and what a way to announce a returning space vehicle's return for reuse. Now, here in California, as you can imagine, the excitement is growing here. The crowd is growing. Kate mentioned our flight controllers in Ad Astra in Texas. Here in Hawthorne, we also have controllers on console in Mission Control, helping those teams in Texas monitor Starship's various systems, including the avionics and those 39 Raptor engines that were built right here in Hawthorne. Now, with 4 minutes, 30 seconds to go, Dan and Kate, how are we looking for a launch today? So we are still looking good. We're just about fully
Zach
topped down
and I
on propellant.
had a chance to talk about this a little bit
The
earlier, but
closeout's going to be coming up in about a minute on
level,
ship, and then about 30 seconds later on the booster.
Main focus on
we are
this
still hearing
mission.
chatter in the background about the booster issue that we're tracking. We may still be able to pass the hold, but if we need to hold it T-minus 40 seconds, we have several minutes that we can hang out there.
So aggressive, and I understand why they want to you really see how far they can push the ship, and especially in getting ready to possibly catch the next ship. So just seeing how that does, curious, and we may not even get to see how the tiles around the two little catching points, how they do. So that's kind of the area that I'm curious about. It's neat to see the booster catch. I know everybody enjoys that, and I don't want to put the cart before the horse, but it seems like they kind of have that down pretty well. And so really seeing how the ship does.
Yeah, of course, once it gets down to it, they'll make the call in real time on whether or not they're going to try for a third catch of the Super Heavy booster. Now approaching 3 minutes and counting. At this point, the ship LOX load should be, or ship prop load all the way should be done. And
burn off, and then we'll have to refill the tanks on both the water farm and the prop farm. Our team's gotten really, really good at refilling stuff really quick, so we can reposition for about a 24-hour recycle if we need to.
Yeah.
But
speaking of
we're
things,
coming up. We're coming up just under 2 minutes away. Now hearing we might hold at that T-minus 40 second mark while they still talk through a couple of troubleshooting steps. But again, if we hold there, we can hold there for several minutes, even with all prop fully loaded on the vehicle, before we can release the hold and decide to move forward. All right, less than a minute and a half away. Again, keep your eye on the clock. Look for T-minus 40. We may hold there. It's not a rocket launch unless you're talking nonstop in the background until right before you lift off.
Once again, if we hold at T-minus 40 seconds, we have an opportunity to hold there for several minutes. This is unique to Starship. We don't have this ability on Falcon.
As we're about 15 seconds away, we did digits here. We are going to hold at T-minus 40. So look for the clock to pause when we hit T-minus 40 as they finish troubleshooting. And then we'll let you know as soon as we start hearing more, and if that clock's when that clock's gonna start rolling. So holding at T-minus 40. So the team's talking in the background, still troubleshooting, and we can hang out here for a couple of minutes. All right, and it sounds like we cleared the issue on the booster. We're now holding for a late breaking issue with ship. So they're talking through that right now.
Dan, you mentioned things that we've gotten really good at. It's incredible to think that we just stacked this vehicle earlier this morning, and we're already, through prop load. Prop load's pretty much complete and ready to go. It's a very slimmed down timeline.
Yeah, this by far will be our fastest. We stacked the thing for the first time ever with these vehicles less than 24 hours ago. We really want to get to a point where we can, fly rapidly, fly as quickly as possible. And so this is definitely a case to try and push that forward. No wet dress or anything like that with these vehicles.
Absolutely. And should this booster come back for a successful landing, you were talking about the rapid part of rapid reusability. This booster may fly on a future Starship flight if we're able to catch it and bring it back online. So for those of you that have just recently joined us, we have paused at T-minus 40 seconds just to assess and work through a problem that popped up in the countdown, and we are holding here as the teams troubleshoot it. We believe that we have put in a solution and we will be able to proceed, but we have some chatter on some nets indicating that we're just holding here for a few more seconds.
Lo haré ahora mismo en QuickBooks.
Now, this is a great
Solo
opportunity
necesito actualizar
for the
mi nuevo y
teams.
creativo.
This is unique on Starship. We don't have this ability on Falcon to hold here, partially because there's just so much propellant that it takes longer as a whole for it to cool down with that amount of volume that we have compared to the Falcon vehicle. But this T-minus 40 second hold is pretty cool because basically everything that would have been a scrub is actually just an opportunity to hold here and work through it. Or I should say many things, not everything. Like I said, we're working through an issue now, but we can also pause here for final checkouts or completion of pressurization to get up to flight levels, that kind of thing. So it's a nice feature to allow the team to wait for final checkouts or assess final prop levels or engine health and that kind of stuff.
Me encanta este momento de tensión en el que los presentadores no hablan, dejan sonido ambiente. Y yo voy a hacer un poco lo mismo porque me gusta esta tensión que se crea.
All right, if you're just tuning in, we are still holding at this T-minus 40 second gate. We cleared an issue on the booster that we were working up until the hold, still working one on ship, and team still continuing to discuss in the background. We can still hold here for several more minutes. If we're not able to resolve the issue or find a workaround, then we would have to essentially scrub and stand down for the day. If that does happen, we can go as early as tomorrow, but that clearly depends on what work we might need to do to fix any issues. So just obviously stay tuned. But right now, we're a little over 5 minutes into this hold today. We've got a couple more minutes that we can hold at T-minus 40. Essentially looking at temperatures on both vehicles. You want those to stay pretty specific ranges for engine startup.
Tranquilos, todavía no se ha cancelado, tranquilos.
How long we hold at T-40. So still hanging out. As soon as we hear an update on the ship, we will let you know.
Que nos mantengamos a la espera, porque pronto nos informarán de qué sucede, si han resuelto el problema o si se cancela el lanzamiento para hoy. Sinceramente, no tiene buena pinta. Vale, perfecto, pues les bajaré la voz, no hay problema.
Starting to sound like we might have a decision real soon.
¿Tienen decisión? A ver. Han dicho que tendrán una decisión muy pronto. Que parece que tendrán una decisión muy pronto. Esto es que no, ¿eh?
All right, you see
sí. Vamos allá, gente. Vamos allá. Vamos allá.
For launch.
Los anuncios.
Los anuncios. Bien, Ernest. MVP, Ernest MVP. Se me olvidaba ya, ¿eh? Ojo. Parón.
Just heard a hold. So we kicked.
Parón.
So we did kick out back to the T-40 hold.
Ay, que parecía que sí, pero no. Vamos a ver qué ha pasado. Mal asunto, ¿eh? Parecía que sí, han retomado la cuenta atrás, pero luego no. No tiene buena pinta, la verdad. No tiene buena pinta. Estas cosas suelen acabar en cancelación. Pero bueno, es SpaceX. Confiemos en ellos, va.
All right, so as we started counting back down, we did trip a few more holds automatically from the booster itself. So we are now going to hang out here again at T-minus 40. They've got a couple more troubleshooting steps that they can take. If we're able to get through that,
Ernest, por favor, ¿cómo que habrá explota?
If not, we could always offload and try again on either tomorrow or another day.
Yo tengo un dicho que es mejor abortar que explotar.
No, sí, está claro. Bueno, ya se empieza a hablar cada vez más fuerte de que posiblemente tengan que intentarlo mañana. Pero bueno, mientras esto no se confirme, vamos a seguir esperando porque posiblemente tengamos lanzamiento. Así que, atentos. Venga. Todo esto es por la gente que ha puesto el yo estuve aquí antes de tiempo. No hemos puesto suficientes anulos MUFA. Lo siento, me sabe mal decirlo, pero es culpa vuestra. Culpa vuestra. Siempre pasa lo mismo. Ahí está el dron sobrevolando muy por encima la plataforma de lanzamiento. Con ese dron es con el que vamos a ver el despegue de Starship. Vamos a ver cómo se va elevando al lado del dron. Que también os digo, el operador de ese dron, buen trabajo, Buen trabajo, Imagínate ver el lanzamiento de Starship. Porque imagino que será esos operadores que tienen las gafas, ¿no? Que pueden ver la cámara del dron. A ver.
So we had a couple of holds trip as we started counting down from T-minus 40 again. And it's not something we can change with small config tweaks. So we are going to offload our prop and then try.
Confirmado, gente, se ha pospuesto el lanzamiento de Starship oficialmente. Ha habido un problema en el Super Heavy que no han sabido atajar. Vamos a estar pendientes de lo que ha sucedido, pero hoy no vamos a tener lanzamiento de Starship. Así que vamos a ver. Tienen ventana de lanzamiento mañana, 24 horas.
So obviously just keep an eye on all of our updates.
Vale.
We are expecting could be about 24 hours, but we will definitely.
Están diciendo 24 horas, pero que bueno, que puede ser que sea más.
For tuning in. Unfortunately, we would have liked to lift off today, but the teams are doing the right thing and standing down while we troubleshoot, and we'll share more information as it becomes available, including when our next launch opportunity is.
Venga, pues hay que estar atentos a SpaceX para ver lo que ha sucedido.
And as I said, we'll share more information as it becomes available.
Perdón.
Thanks all for joining us today.
Me habéis dejado de escuchar de repente, ¿no? Ahora me escucháis otra vez. Nada, chicos, música con derechos fuera. Vale, ponemos pantalla completa. Vale. me están diciendo Sergio, Astrofriki, Ernest, no vamos a hacer tertulia en caliente porque evidentemente no hemos tenido lanzamiento de Starship. Nos vemos mañana. Ya hablaré con vosotros a ver si podéis estar de nuevo, todos los invitados que han venido hoy. Y pues nada, vamos a dejarlo aquí. Una lástima, gente. El chat que ya está funcionando todo mal. Se le cae el directo a SpaceX, se me cae a mí también. Tremendo. Nada, que venga, que es muy tarde en España, que sé que todos queréis dormir, así que nos emplazamos. A ver, espera, Ernest, adelante.
Nada, solo es un pequeño apunte que teniendo en cuenta que han llenado hasta arriba de propelentes, yo veo bastante posible que no se retrasen solo a mañana, sino que un par de días. Porque tienen que llenar otra vez toda la granja de propelentes.
Es cierto.
No es seguro, porque
cierto.
la modificaron y todo eso, claro, entonces puede que sí
tiene más capacidad.
Hacerlo, pero yo creo que van a tener que retrasar. Sobre todo porque el Hall les habrá comido mucho combustible.
Sí, cierto. Bueno, gracias Ernest por estar ahí, vosotros, a los moderadores que han estado moderando el chat. Nos vemos mañana o cuando sea. Estad atentos en redes sociales, seguidme en Twitter, seguidme en Instagram, porque ahí os voy a ir anunciando lo que diga SpaceX y nos vemos entonces. Un abrazo, gente. Hoy no va a haber escena postcréditos porque es que, o sea, ahora vamos a hablar en serio vosotros y yo. Hoy no ha habido lanzamiento. Por tanto, está totalmente justificado que hoy no haya escena postcréditos. Y yo sé que cuando digo esto, vosotros os quedáis, porque esperáis que al final, no, yo me voy a quedar aquí hasta que corte el directo porque siempre acaba saliendo. Hoy no tendría sentido que saliera, porque es que no ha habido lanzamiento. Por tanto, si os quedáis esperando, estáis perdiendo vuestro preciado tiempo. Vosotros mismos. Un abrazo, gente, y nos vemos en el... Ay, espera, la música, aquí. Un abrazo, gente, y nos vemos en el próximo directo. Será mañana, será pasado, ya lo veremos. Gracias a todos por estar aquí. Chao, adiós.